Welcome in, everybody, to Trust the Board. Joey Bray and Ryan Parrish from behind the steel curtain with you as always. We're here to talk about draft, and we're just under a month away from the NFL draft kicking off in the great city of Pittsburgh. It's going to be like a crowd of over 500,000 people. I can't wait to see how they fit all those people in the streets of Pittsburgh. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere, and I'm excited to see how it all goes down. First of all, Ryan, how you doing? How you feeling? Just under a month away from the draft officially. We're here.
Excited, tired, just ready to see it all unveiled. As a Steelers fan who doesn't live in Pittsburgh, I've been seeing all my Pittsburgh mentions in there, already panicking. That for those who aren't familiar with the region, the schools there are going to be going remote because the city is just not prepared for this situation at all. It's kind of amusing since they knew this was coming. We've known for a while that it was going to be here. Seems like not a lot of thought was put into logistics, but it's going to be great. If other places can pull it off, I'm sure Pittsburgh's going to have an awesome event.
Oh yeah, they're going to be able to pull it off. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be chaos, but that's kind of what I love about it. So we'll jump right into it. Someone who has been a pretty interesting prospect. He's like a consensus top prospect at the wide receiver position. There's that top tier: Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordyn Tyson. And Jordyn Tyson,
wide receiver.
I've called him the analytical darling of the class. He's Ryan's wide receiver one. He has been throughout the whole process. And I see where he's coming from. If you put on just the 2024 tape of Jordyn Tyson, it's hard to say, yeah, that is the best season put on tape of any one of these draft prospects easily. But the thing with Jordyn Tyson is he can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. And he hasn't played football since November, missed the last couple games of his final season at Arizona State because of a hamstring injury. Didn't participate at the combine because of that same hamstring injury. Then it comes out this past week that he re-aggravated said injury and did not participate at his pro day. I don't know where the hell this guy's going to go because, like you said, Ryan, I think there are some teams out there who view Tyson as wide receiver one, and deservedly so. But how much does this affect his stock legitimately? I don't know where the hell he goes first round.
I mean, I think it's more than a non-zero impact for sure, because I think that's interesting about him is all the injuries have been different. They all have been different parts of the body. They've all been different types of injuries. I mean, one year was the collarbone. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's set up for the classic, early career Keenan Allen arc of everyone going, this guy is really talented, but he just always gets hurt. And, a lot of it has seemed pretty fluky. And yes, he's re-aggravated the hamstring injury. That I get. That seems to happen, if it's still fairly fresh. I think he hurt that late in the season, if my memory is serving me correctly. So, I'm not overly shocked, and maybe that impacts year one with him a little bit, and that's maybe why he falls a bit. But when I think about why he's my number one, and this might not be a comp that gets people excited, but to me, the more I've watched him and tried to figure out whose game I think he reminds me of, he really does remind me of just Amari Cooper. He's gets open. That's the main thing about him. If you're comparing all three of them, it's you've got Tate is the bigger body. I mean, tall. He's under 200, so I kind of quibble with the big receiver
he's
things
lanky.
he's been getting, but he plays big, so I get it. He's kind of your contested catch of the top three guys. Lemon is your slot guy he's not really much of a vertical guy, but he's going to win all the underneath stuff, and you can basically make him like an extension of your running game through the wide receiver position. Safe, easy routes to dump off to, and he'll create after the catch, even if he's not the jitteriest of all prospects. And then, you got Tyson, who is the guy who he runs the filthiest routes of those three, in my opinion. He busted his ass off to get better hands. He had some drop issues in his earlier college seasons. He had a much better rate there. I think it was under 5% this year. He went from 9%, I think, to roughly 4.5 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. It's been a minute since I've looked at those numbers, so those aren't as fresh. But I know that he greatly improved his drops this year. And he's not a guy that you are consistently like, oh my gosh, he's the slipperiest after the catch, but I think he's got more yak ability than people give him credit for. And I don't know, he plays above the rim a lot. He's just a guy that I just think he's a good player. I just think he's like, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think he would be the safest of the three. Unfortunately, you just have these different injuries that come up. Um, but I guess I keep banking on none of them have been the same injury. None of them have necessarily been the same even body parts. So like, how much is bad luck? How much is this is just a guy who he's gonna always be banged up? I don't know. It's hard to say, and that's why I think he's falling to a guy who's like probably gonna be no earlier than like pick 20, I would imagine. But
You
we'll
think
see.
no earlier than pick 20? Is that what I
Just
hear?
think I think when
I think
I'm
that's
the way that
reasonable.
everything's breaking out, I
Yeah.
just think that's gonna be the case. I think pick 20-ish is like roughly where I think teams are gonna go. The talent is just so much more than the injury risk. I think when you get those first like 10 to 15 picks, they don't want to take any kind of gamble, which is also why I think we'll see a guy like Jamar McCoy fall because he's hasn't played in over a year. You know, guys that you watch the tape and you go, these guys are super talented, but NFL teams are so risk averse, especially with those first round picks, that I think like 20 is kind of where I see teams starting to loosen up a little bit on those. And I think there's enough teams on the back half that want wide receivers that also some of me wonders how much is this gamesmanship from Tyson of like, I know I'm good. I also know that I don't want to end up on the Jets who are picking like 16, right? So let's just kind of like not aggravate an injury, which I believe is probably true. I'm sure he retweaked it. I'm sure all that's great. I just always wonder when we get to these like guys who aren't testing, how much is the gamesmanship here of like, can I? I have said the earliest I've seen him been going most commonly is to the Ravens, and I would absolutely hate that at 14.
Yeah.
But I'm so convinced they're taking Yuani that I will be shocked if they go Tyson. But yeah, I don't know. He could land anywhere. But I think a more interesting question beyond Tyson, because so much is unknown with his health, and we're just going to kind of have to see how that plays out, is how do you not only have the top 30 stack, but how many first round wide receivers do you actually think there are? Because I've been up and down on this. There was a period where I was like, Tyson's going to be the cutoff, and they're all going to go later than everyone thought. And as the cycle's worn on, maybe I'm just getting worn down by all the internet people who always pump wide receivers up. But I'm just curious, how many do you think are going in the first, and
Well,
where's the cutoff?
before I answer that, I'll say that if Tyson goes no later than 20 or no earlier than 20, I think that affects my answer. Because, first of all, when you said 20, Buzz, who picks at 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they're able to get Jordyn Tyson at number 21 overall, that would be unbelievable. I'd jump in the river out of happiness. I'll tell you what. But I think that definitely affects it. And I think this whole Jordyn Tyson thing affects it all because, especially even the Max Crosby trade, when the Max Crosby trade happened, I think everybody's takeaway on Twitter or a popular one became, oh, the Raiders are going to take Omar Cooper at 14. That's what they're going to do. They're going to double dip on Indiana guys. They're going to get Mendoza, his wide receiver one. They're going to bring those guys, reunite them. Now, I still think Omar Cooper is a first round wide receiver just because everybody in Indianapolis was talking about how much they loved him. It seems like GMs really, really like him. So I think for me, as far as how I have them ranked, I still think Mekhi Lemon is the cream of the crop. Beyond that, I think, dude, I go back and forth. I have Tyson too some days, and then I'm like, you know what? Maybe Carnell Tate better. I don't know. It's a toss up. I like Mekhi Lemon slightly better than the other two, but like I have like a 2B, 2A, 2B between Tate and Tyson. And then I think 4 for me is Omar Cooper, just because of all the hype he's been getting, because of the versatility, because it seems like there are a lot of offenses in the NFL, a lot of offensive coordinators who have a defined plan for him. And if he's going to go late first round, let's say for the sake of the argument, Tyson goes 21 to the Steelers. Beyond that, a team like, I don't know, Philadelphia could take Omar Cooper late. And I think that relationship with A.J. Brown is beyond saving. I think the writing's on the wall with that. And I think they save some money if they trade him post June 1st. So wouldn't be shocked to see that happen, later in the offseason. They can play it out as long as they want to. But if they get someone like Omar Cooper, and it doesn't have to be Philadelphia. I think Cooper's going to be picked in the late first by one of those teams, but other than that, I don't know. Well, I guess Denzel Boston is kind of the cutoff for me. I guess he would be fifth, but while we're talking about him, we can talk about Chris Sims' wide receiver rankings real quick. I'll just read them off. I'm sure you've seen it, but
classic bait artist, Chris Sims.
wide receiver rankings for the 2026 class per Chris Sims, NFL quarterback, former. Tier 1, Denzel Boston. Number 1, prospect in the class, Denzel Boston. Jordyn Tyson, number 2. All right, fair. I have Tyson too
Get
as well.
that one.
Yeah, I like that. Tier 2, Chris Brazzell. Don't
I like
get
Chris
that.
Brazzell. I don't know if he's wide receiver. In fact, I'm positive he's not wide receiver 3 in this class.
Wide receiver 4 in this class, Carnell Tate, according to Chris Sims. All right,
you got to have 2 out of the top 3. He sure seems to have left one of those guys off, though. There's one more guy in there, I'm sure.
And then if you had, who's number 5, guys? If your answer is Mekhi Lemon, you're wrong. It's Zachariah Branch.
Which, gross.
Who, that one's pretty gross.
That one is like the biggest, like, if you follow the draft long enough, you know that this is Chris Sims' shtick, is that he likes to take his positional ranks, put out a top 5, which is also like such a small scope usually when you're looking at positions, because most of the time there's more than 5 guys worth that you're talking about in a given position group. Not always, usually. And so he usually takes the most popular, so there's always going to be quarterbacks, there's always going to be running backs, there's always going to be wide receivers, and then he'll usually put out some edge rusher or some other cornerbacks. And he always likes to first off, it's very rare that the consensus number 1 for most people is Chris Sims number 1. That's key number 1 to any Chris Sims list. He's going to have to sprinkle in 2 of the top 3 guys usually, just for some credibility. But then he usually throws some just off the wall stuff out there. And anybody that's kind of trying to guess which of these guys are going to be good, sometimes those off the wall picks hit. A lot of times they look very foolish once you look back in them in retrospect. And wide receiver, I think, has been one where historically, pull up his one from last year. I can't remember the exact rankings, but I remember it being one where you look at it a year from now and you're like, no, that's not right. So I don't know. To me, the cutoff, I think, is about the same as you. Omar Cooper, I think he's gonna, I don't know. Part of my gut still thinks I still like him better as a top 10 pick in the second round. I think you are getting more value and more less unnecessary expectations put on a guy who I think is really good and I think can ascend, but is maybe getting a little extra dip on the chip for his draft value right now. I also hate that I'm commonly seeing him going to the Browns at 24. I would hate that so much.
But that sucks.
I've seen him going. To me, I think the cutoff is I think we're definitely getting the top 3 guys. And I think we're getting Cooper at this point, or at least Cooper or Boston. And then where I'm interested is I extended out one more guy in that I don't know for sure that he's going to go in the first, but I wouldn't be shocked if one of the teams in the late 20s or early 30s takes a Casey Concepcion. He's a guy that I think is one of the most polarizing prospects right now. Him and Denzel Boston both, to be honest. And there's legitimate reasons to be both excited and concerned about both of those guys. That's why I think the range of outcomes for them is all over the place right now. I tend to think that I'm not saying he's going to be this high, but I think if we're looking at a scale of Mike Evans to Keon Coleman, I'm putting Denzel Boston on the hemisphere with Evans more than I am on the hemisphere with Coleman.
And so that's good. That's good.
I think that's good. I like Denzel Boston. I got to see him in person this year. I think he's legit. There is, some change of direction concerns in terms of how long sometimes it takes him to slow down his feet when he's chopping to do a comeback stuff. But when you really account for his size and weight, I'm honestly not that concerned. I think he's still fairly smooth for his size coming out of things. And I think he's just a ball winner. He wins the contested catches in a way that I think is translatable. That's not always the case with college guys, but I think Boston is going to be a guy who, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to be a very solid player that a team is going to be glad to have. Concepcion, Concepcion, I think, is another guy where I'm like, I picture him being a what's it, Reed from Green Bay. I picture him being kind of like that,
Oh,
where I think he's maybe not, tier 1 or tier 2, but he's got some juice. He's gonna be, if you can get him to get a little bit more sound, so he stops, does too many alligator claps with his hands sometimes, but he is I think he just gets open. So I think check one, that's a hard thing to teach. So he's got that down. I think you can teach hands. I feel like this time of year, you always get people that are like, well, you can coach this and this. And it's kind of hard to like know which traits are actually the ones that can be coached. When it comes to wide receiver, improving your hands and your stylistic attempts of how you catch the ball, I feel like that is something that can be caught. And so I wouldn't be shocked if he sneaks in there, but that is where I kind of see the cutoff.
yeah.
I don't really think I see anybody else jumping in. And I know a lot of people were like Zachariah Branch, but man, I don't know. I've seen it too many times. I'm not taking I'm happy to let somebody else bet on the guys with the over 60% of your receptions come from 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
No for the 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. It can work. And when it does work, awesome. But that's just not something I want to bet on for a guy that's like 5'9". He's got some juice. I'll give him that. But like, can he actually run NFL routes? Can he get enough production that you don't have to just deliberately scheme everything up for him?
Yeah.
And because like coaches don't tend to do that. Like it's very rare that they find a player where you're gonna like deliberately scheme him those types of routes.
Yeah.
So an
All
offense
right.
through him. So I don't know. But
So,
those are my thoughts on those receivers.
final thought or final thing as we kind of close out our receiver Jordyn Tyson discourse here. I pulled up Chris Sims' 2025 wide receiver draft rankings.
Mhm.
Number one was Travis Hunter. And listen,
Oh,
I
that
was
worked out
a,
well.
I was a huge Travis Hunter guy last draft. I thought he should have been taken number one overall. I'll stand on that. I liked the Jaguars landing spot because the whole process, I'm like, he's going to go to the Browns and this is going to suck. Like, I hate it here. And it's just not working out the way I thought it was going to work out. So, hand up accountability for me on that one. I also was very high on Travis Hunter, but I like Tet McMillan better as a receiver prospect. I mean, that was always pretty clear, I thought. But number two on Chris Sims' 2025 list was Kyle Williams.
I like Kyle Williams. He's not
I
number
like Kyle
two.
Williams too.
He's not number two.
But number three was then Tedero and McMillan.
See, you gotta have, because everyone was like, Ted's the guy, so you can't not have him on the list. But you gotta, when you're pulling the
Yeah.
Chris Sims gambit, you gotta bump him down a few pegs.
And Jalen Noel was number four.
I'm also a huge
Jalen
Noel
Noel.
fan. But didn't see as much last year. It's a crowded room in Houston.
I don't even think he was the best Iowa State wide receiver in that class, but neither here nor there. Number five was Trey Harris from Ole Miss. Trey Harris did get a lot of
Interesting.
hype. He did get a lot of hype. I remember that. Those were the
I am
times.
curious to see what he looks like in year two, because if you're looking at it from a fantasy football perspective, as I know a lot of people are, you didn't get anything out of Trey Harris last year. If you're a guy who likes to just kind of watch players and realizes that, we've gotten spoiled in recent years with a lot of receivers that get mainlined out of necessity or out of just, being generational talents that year one are producing right away, that I feel like we've lost a lot of patience for the guys where it takes like like 2 to 3 years. Like I think of a guy like Nico Collins, who I think a lot of people would go, yeah, he's probably in the top 10 wide receivers right now. That's a guy who didn't really do much until year 3. That still happens. So I'm not ready to write guys off after 1 year, especially knowing how much, like, especially in certain situations where you have kind of old school coaches. Harbaugh, I think, qualifies, where it's like they don't really want to like rely on a rookie in year one, and they kind of want to make those guys do a little bit year one, do a little bit more year two, and then they're ready to have their full earned trust if they're still, because like another guy that like broke out in a similar way, he's had a bit of a fallout recently. But remember, former sure to be Pittsburgh Steeler Brandon Ayuk, he was another
Oh,
guy
I
who like
do.
he did
I
nothing
do.
his first year. He was in the doghouse his first year, and then he kind of broke out in year 3. He had a little bit better season 2, and then he kind of broke out in year 3. And so like I think that's still normal, and we just live in a society where we want instant gratification.
I'll say this. I still believe in Brandon Ayuk just a little bit. I'm not fully out the door. I'm not. There is still Brandon Ayuk is still in there somewhere. And I think he's going to get released by the 49ers. I think he's going to go to Washington. And that's why I can't let it go, because I think that would be perfect, because we'll talk about Washington. Actually, there's a pretty good segue into it, but they're a disaster offensively. They missed out on pretty much every big offensive free agent that they tried to get. They were the kings of, we almost had them in free agency. And this brings us into our next topic.
Hang the banger.
Jeremiyah Love,
Yeah.
the number 1 running back prospect far and away, a probably surefire top 10 pick. Adam Schefter reported, well, he was kind of asked, it was on ESPN's Get Up show, what's the Jeremiyah Love landing spot? And he said the team to watch is the Washington Commanders at number 7. I mean,
There's a lot of smoke there. There's a lot of smoke now.
what do you think of that? Is that smoke or is that real? Because, well, I'll let you go first. I have some thoughts.
Well, I
but
mean, sometimes smoke is real, right? Because the saying is where there's smoke, there's fire. So,
yeah,
you know, there's smoke screens and then there's smoke from an actual fire. And I feel like, you know, it's tough because, you know, we've been so ingrained to be like running backs are not worth this, especially if you're a roster that is like still kind of in a weird phase of your build. Like you take a top 10 running back, or really just even a first round running back, when you are like on the brink of like going all in, right? And I don't think that that's Washington's roster right now. They have a fairly old roster when you look at it, and they have shed some of that this offseason, but like I kind of am buying the hype because we look at some of the moves of those other rumored destinations like the Chiefs and like the Saints, who went out and paid running back veterans. And it's like, is that because they are hearing and like have reliable sources that Love wouldn't make it to them? Or is that more of a trend of, as we've seen the last couple of off seasons, like I think dating back to like the Eagles signing you know, Saquon, and the Packers signing Josh Jacobs, and like all those types of moves of like the market recorrecting and being like, oh, you know what, if you're a contending team, you could take a rookie, or you could just go sign the vet that we know is still good, that his team didn't want to pay another contract to, splurge on that. So it's hard to know for sure, but I would say right now I'm leaning towards buying it because I can see the Washington organization. You know, there was those reports a couple years ago of like I forget who it was that was going to go maybe work in the front office there and decided, you know what, no, they're more basketball guys, was the quote that came out of it.
yeah.
And I could kind of see an organization like that who had a lot of success in year 1 talking themselves into, yeah, no, Jaden's still the guy. He's our engine. He was hurt last year. He'll be healthy next year, and he'll make it all happen like he did as a rookie year. And if we get him a running back, he won't have to run it as much. I could see themselves talking themselves into like, ooh, we just need to get this running back in. He'll run it more, less hits on Jaden. He's gonna be a weapon. You know, he's not a running back. He's a weapon. Like I can see that being a way that they talk themselves into. So I could see it. I mean, personally, I would rather him fall out of the top 10 and go to a team a little more in the middle of the first round. Um, Honestly, you know, I would like him. I would like to see him in Dallas as much as, just because I feel like that's an offense that's more built and ready to go than Washington currently is, especially with their questions on the line and them not really having anybody at wide receiver beyond Terry McLaurin, who I find very threatening. But you know, it could. What are your thoughts on it? Because I don't know. I could see it being real, but who's to say?
The thing for me is, like, I see what you're saying about like, oh, they could talk themselves into that. I think we agree that this would be like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Like Jeremiah Love, awesome player, one of the best players in the entire draft, but the fit's weird. It sounds like you can pencil in Brandon Ayuk to them. So they're going to have Brandon Ayuk, Terry McLaurin on the outside. Ideally, McLaurin and Jayden Daniels are both fully healthy. And, Brandon Ayuk decides he wants to play football. And then you have Jeremiah Love. But the thing for me is the defense in Washington was clearly like the glaring issue last year. Like beyond obviously, we're without Jayden Daniels was you couldn't even try to salvage anything with Marcus Mariota because the defense was so bad. And they're picking at 7 where they're going to have a shot to get like a Sonny Styles, like just a David Bailey, any one of those like top tier linebacker, edge rusher prospects. That's just like basic team building to me. Like you go with that before you go out and get a running back who I'm not denying is uber talented, but I guess I don't even see him getting to Washington at 7. I think like he's going to be a Tennessee Titan at number 4. I feel like
Really think so.
I think that's got to be it because
Is it?
here's the thing. My boy Robert Saleh, I wanted the Steelers to go out and get him. I think he's going to pound the table for like a Reuben Bain if he's there. He's going to pound the table for a defensive guy. I still think young GM, he can be talked into, look, Cam Ward year 2. We're going to support him. We're going to go out and we're going to get a Jeremiah Love because who does Tennessee have on the outside this year? They're going to have Calvin Ridley back, I think. They're going to have Chimere Dike, who I don't know if you're into him. Elikayo Manor.
I like Chimere Dike. He was on my gems list last year. So
shout out.
Yeah, that's another Pro Bowler, and I think he was an All Pro special teamer.
He was All Pro. So
I don't know. My gems list. We find some guys on there.
I could see them talking themselves into Jeremiah Love at 4. And like, are they going to do the Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears split again? Is that your number 4 of that? I'm really sick of seeing the Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears stuff.
I don't know.
It's just all uninspired. With a team like Tennessee, though, because they went out and they spent so much in free agency. Oh, no, they have Wandale. What am I saying? They have Wandale on the outside. He's going to be their 1. I don't know.
He's gonna be their gadget guy.
He's good. He's fun.
He's I wouldn't have paid him what they paid him, but he's fine. He was one of my. I sold him in fantasy last year when my team was doing garbage and I didn't collect picks. I was able to be like, hey guys, he's wide receiver 11. So he was in fantasy, but at least in our league. But I don't know. I just like when I look at them, it's like if you want to support Cam Ward, I would just so much rather you get a lineman, get a premier pass rusher so that he doesn't have to put up 30 points. Or, if you really are just like, we got to give him an offensive weapon, I would much more rather stomach a Cornell Tate there, even if I think Tate really should be more closer to 10 than he should be to 5. To me, that would be much more helpful than a running back who, sure, that's fine, but it's like, what if I told you could either get a blue chipper, in the first round that is going to contribute more to wins than a running back will, and you could still get a Jonah Coleman or a Mike Washington Jr., or I know he's not your guy, but like he's up there in the rankings, Jadarian Price later. I just feel like, why not do that?
I see what you mean. I don't know. It's weird because like none of the teams in the top 10 theoretically need to draft a running back, but someone like Jeremiah Love, he's going to go very early. I like Cam Ward going in year 2. I think he's going to be good. Out of the second year guys, I think I like Cam Ward the best. I've never been a huge Jackson Dart guy. Jackson Dart, I'm not hating on him. He's good. He's got upside. I'll never be able to wrap my head around a Harbaugh, like a John Harbaugh team. And like that offense, make no mistake, you can look at Jackson Dart's numbers with Daboll and without Daboll. You might not want to, but he took a dip without Daboll. And I think very highly of Daboll. And now he goes and he gets Cam Ward.
I while we're just throwing out thoughts and takes about the quarterbacks from a year ago, I'm honestly like not going to be very shocked if at the end of this upcoming season, Tennessee bungles however they manage it Poor Cam Ward is kind of still just having to fight through it because I still think he's very good, but I think he's in a very rough situation. And I've never been a Dart guy either. I actually had him behind Tyler Shuck last year. And I don't know, I've kind of like what the Saints have been doing. Like
I,
they're almost out of cap hell, and I feel like they have a really good opportunity with this draft to really put some interesting pieces around Tyler Shuck. They've kind of quietly did it the right way of building up their line the past couple of years. I'm not saying it's like the best offensive line in the league yet by any stretch, but they've put some investment in there. And I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying he's going to get MVP votes in year 2 like Jeremiyah. But the more I watch Tyler Shuck, man, I think he's at best competent starter. And if Tennessee really continues to bungle the management of how they're going to surround Cam Ward, especially if they're like running back, and then who knows how else they'll go. I just don't be shocked if Tyler Shuck is the quarterback that we're all talking about from the 2025 class at the end of the season.
Tyler Shuck's not bad. I was never a huge Tyler Shuck guy. I did have Dart
Yeah,
over
my
him slightly.
enthusiasm
I
is
was
capped,
not.
but
Yeah, absolutely. But
but I think he's gonna be all right.
he's good. He's gonna be all right. That's our Tyler Shuck take. I like
Yeah,
it. Maybe
yeah.
he goes to the Saints. Where do the Saints pick? They pick at
Well, they signed Achan, now
Travis
known as
Achan.
Achan. Yeah, yeah.
It,
Formerly known as Travis Etienne. He is now correcting folks after years of being too afraid to correct them on his name. He has told them it is Achan.
good for him.
So good for him. Live your truth, man.
Proud of you for finally sticking up for yourself.
Those Cajun names are tough.
Yeah.
Those French names, Americans have never handled those well.
Yeah. All right. So as we close out here, Ryan, we're a little less than a month from the draft in Pittsburgh, as we said at the top of the show. If you had to put your money on it today, if you had to say, this is who the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to draft, I'm putting my money on it. If I get it wrong, I'll have to do something terrible. Give me the name right now and why. Give it to me.
That's so tough because like I have like 5 to 10 guys where I'm like, if they draft this guy, great, but I have no clue what they're thinking.
That's I sorry to interrupt. I think this is the most wide open, like, who the hell are they going to take in years?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like whenever they took Broderick, even though nobody anticipated they'd trade up for him, I feel like everybody's like, yeah, they like Broderick. They're going to take him. It's felt more clear in recent years. Harmon was always a big possibility, but continue.
We're entering, you say that, but we're entering what I think traditionally is about the time that things start, like within the next week and a half, traditionally. Because like the first, you go through March and you're like, you don't really know. There's a bunch of guys that you would like them to like, and then free agency happens and all this stuff. It feels like with the last couple of years, like Harmon, like if you'd asked us this time last year, is it Harmon? He's like on the list of guys you like, but it really didn't come clear until like the last 2.5, 3 weeks, where it's like, it's really seeming like Harmon. And the year before, I don't know which lineman, but it really feels like we're going to take our best tackle available. And the year before, I don't know. It really seems like they're starting to buy into this Broderick Jones guy. So like we could be like a week or so away from being like, oh, okay, the tea leaves are now starting to present themselves. I know you have a take on a guy that we'll get to in just a second, but for me, these are my thoughts. If Ione falls and he doesn't go to the Ravens, which I'm almost certain will happen at 14, if he somehow falls to the Steelers, I think that's a serious consideration because he's nasty. I think Big Mike likes big guys, and I think that would be in consideration. I'm like willing to say that I don't think it's going to be a cornerback. The Steelers just don't do it. Like even in a year where they had Joey Porter Jr. they took at 32, that was technically a second rounder because the Dolphins forfeited a pick, so it bumped him out of the first round. So like I just don't think they're going to draft one. That's not what they do. Maybe they take like a McNeil Warren at safety, but I honestly think safety is going to be another one where it's so deep they're going to push it down. So I'm like, I don't really think safety's it either. Could they go wide receiver? Maybe they've had Denzel Boston in for a visit. You know, they've chatted with other guys. Jordan Tyson's a guy that maybe if he falls, they go, hey, the value's there. And Omar Khan has shown that he will draft for guys who have fallen because of injury. Another one that I'm like found out was quite unpopular, but I also think is just from a mock I did this week that I just think like if I'm thinking about Omar Khan and how he likes to capitalize on players whose value was at one point in one thing and then has fallen a little bit in the process, the more we see Peter Woods tumble down
Oh no.
the draft board, the more I'm like, and see, there you go. You're saying, oh no, already. And I'm sitting here going, you know, we had 2 elite years of tape. And when you go back and you look at the season he had, it didn't live up to expectation, but it certainly wasn't a bad season. And, you know, he didn't put up freaky defensive, like athletic numbers at the combine. But, you know, he's at a position where, you know, I don't really care about that as much at D tackle. Like, you're over 300 pounds. Like, I don't really care that your vertical isn't like amazing. Like, I love it when it is,
Yeah.
but he's shown enough on tape where I'm not like, this is just some scrub who isn't athletic, you know? He's definitely got his flaws, but as a guy who can stuff the run still pretty reliably and definitely has pass rush juice, even if he isn't as consistent as you like. If you're telling me that it's real that he's gone from being a guy that we all had on number 1 on our consensus boards heading into the 2025 college season, maybe number 2 if you had somebody else in there like an Arch Manning or quarterback, somebody that you were sure was going to be a number 1, he was he was in top 5 easily. And go back until the combine, he was still being very commonly mocked in the top 10. So if you're sitting there at 21 and a guy who was not that long ago being projected as a top 10 player is available because people are upset about him not being as amazing as he was in 2024 and 2023, that screams, especially when we have a guy like Weidel who comes from the Eagles school of drafting of like, oh, everyone's out on this guy because they got bored of him. I don't know. I could see it.
So you're saying Peter Woods? Is that
I'm
that's
not
the
saying
one?
I'm locking in Peter Woods, but he's like, I think should be on our radar a little more than maybe
I
he was before.
the thing I kind of default to when you say that is like the same thing you said about the safeties, like McNeil Warren. Like if a team picked him, fine. But where are the Steelers going to put him? I already don't know what the hell they're going to do with Jaquan Brisker and Deshaun Elliott, who I think we agree play pretty similar games. They both can blitz. They're both going to be used towards the line of scrimmage.
We're gonna do the 2 high splits.
I don't. And then they have Jalen Ramsey. I don't know what they're going to do with Jalen Ramsey. If they want to bump him back down to corner, I think that's plausible and logical. Probably what happens. But then again, that goes back to they don't need a corner. They don't really need a safety. They don't need a defensive lineman, I'd argue, because it seems like they think they're going to get at least maybe 1, maybe 2 more years out of Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, Sebastian Joseph Day. I'm forgetting somebody, Keanu Benton. I don't know. What are we doing?
I got counters here. I got counters for a lot of what you just
I like
said.
it.
Yeah, so let's have the conversation.
Okay.
For starters, one, I'm kind of concerned about Deshaun Elliott, if I'm being honest. He got a really nasty injury. We haven't really heard any updates about him. I'm hoping he comes back healthy and they're the 2 starters that they play and they just move Ramsey around. But part of me is wondering if we're a little more concerned about his injury than maybe, or we should be a little more concerned about that neck injury than we are. Is the plan going to be that he's healthy, or is the plan, oh, we've got Brisker and we're going to move Ramsey back there, and then if we get Elliott back healthy at some point, gravy. He's also on the last year of his deal. Okay, moving on to the D line. I would say outside of quarterback, all the positions have been somewhat adjusted so that the Steelers aren't really in a, unless you say they really want to get like Ione at left guard if he's still available. There isn't like a glaring need to fill starter role anywhere other than quarterback at this point, which I just, again, still teasing it. I know you got a guy there, but but they don't really need to force a pick at any particular position. The trade for Michael Pittman Jr., you don't need to force a wide receiver in the first round if there's a guy in the second or a third at this point. that you want to take a risk on, like you can get away with it. I know some fans are still dead set on like we need wide receiver 3. I don't know if that's as true anymore, with especially with if it's hard to say because we don't have Arthur Smith anymore. But are they going to still want to use the league trend of like more 12 and 13 personnel sets? We'll see. I'll just say with the defensive line, Keanu Benton, you're gonna have to make a decision on his if you're giving him a second contract soon. He's been a pass rush specialist who's woefully out of position in the run game and gets bullied at nose tackle in the run game consistently. Uh, Cam Hayward, literally, like they just keep moving the goalpost a year. He's a guy where it's like you're going to take him as long as he's playing at a
Yeah.
high level, and you can just bump him some new money. But like that could be over soon. Who knows? That could be over after this year. Be over in a couple of years. Who's to say? Harmon, he's in there. Sebastian Joseph Day, I'm pretty sure he has like a 1 year or maybe it's a 2 year contract. That's functionally a 1 year.
2 year. Yeah, it's like a 2 year,
That's
but
the
it's
thing
really
is
a
like
1 year.
all the guys they handed multi-year contracts and free agency is if you pop the hood and look at how they're structured, they're functionally 1 year contracts that could be second years if the players like play well and they want to keep them. But all the money is in the first year and they can easily move on. Even with Jamel Dean, who got I think a 3 year deal, most of the money is in the first year. And if that goes poorly, they can June first him and only eat $4 million. So like a lot of the moves they made were guys that were like cheap, first year loaded, and we can move on if we need to. So like I think when you're just looking at team building, defensive tackle, even if it's not Woods, if there's a guy that they really, really like there, they sat Cam Hayward for the first couple of years of his career. Like, I don't think that that's like a prohibitor of drafting, like whether it's defensive tackle, corner, any of the positions. If there's a guy they love that there isn't a starting spot right now for them, I don't think that means they would turn away if they really do like a guy. I'm not saying they do really love Woods, but I'm just saying I can easily see a situation where, hey, this guy who was a top 5 consensus pick projected heading into the year, who still had like 20 plus pressures as a defensive tackle this year and 20 plus stops in the run game. I don't know. And he's had like 90 pressures in his 3 year career, who's only 21, who so theoretically is still kind of growing into who he is as a player. He's a lot younger than a lot of the other prospects because a lot of the guys that we like right now are all like 23, 24. I'm just saying. It's one of those where it's like, okay, yeah, defensive tackle is deep, but are we going to get a 21-year-old former top 5 projected pick and he's just sitting here at 21 when everyone thought he'd be gone? I'm just saying, put it on your radar. Just put it on your radar. That's all.
Okay. So if I had to put my money on it today, if I had a gun to my head, for lack of a better term, and I had to pick, but I'll start it this way.
Yeah.
The draft is in Pittsburgh. Art Rooney, there's an argument to be made. Totally different argument, totally different day. He wanted the draft in Pittsburgh more than he wanted to win the Super Bowl this year. He wants a big reaction out of the crowd. He's got a brand new shiny head coach. He's from Pittsburgh. I don't know if you've fallen for the he's from Pittsburgh propaganda. I found that's a common thing. People are like, well, I started off hating Mike McCarthy and now I like him. Nope. Stand on that. Stand on your take, guys, because you never know. But your gut's always right. And this is my gut here. I think they want a big reaction out of the crowd. How do they get a big reaction out of the crowd? Well, they're going to take a position that everybody wants them to take. Everybody knows that they need this position. What position have they not addressed so far this offseason that they absolutely needed? I mean, we'll start. They addressed wide receiver. I think they need another receiver. I would probably go wide receiver first round if I was them. But I think it's also very plausible. It would be very Steelers for them to be like, we got Michael Pittman. He's look at that. Wide receiver 2, check. Jamel Dean, they needed a corner, check. Even you probably got Jalen Ramsey to play corner for you because you signed Jaquan Brisker. So you've addressed, your safety room and you slide him back down. Corner check, safety check. Defensive line, we got another depth guy in Sebastian Joseph Day, check. What am I missing? What am I missing here? Oh, quarterback. And you can think they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to, go to mini camp. Aaron Rodgers is going to sign in June, even though Omar Khan said it's not going to drag on like it did last year. It absolutely is going to drag on like it did last year. It already is. But, we have national championship winning quarterback Will Howard that Steelers Nation absolutely adores and loves and is crowned already, despite not taking a single snap of preseason or any organized football activity since the national championship game.
And being a 6th-round pick.
But he won a national championship and John Gruden loves him. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. They're going to take Ty Simpson at 21 overall. I really think they are. I think that there is a lot of smoke there. I think the Steelers made a very interesting decision when they decided to go to Georgia Pro Day over Penn State Pro Day. Oh, Joey, that seems insignificant. Ty Simpson didn't go to either of those schools. Why does that correlate? Well, I'll tell you why it correlates. They probably still need a left guard. I think they're higher on Spencer Anderson than anybody wants to admit. Posted a video about that on my YouTube. Go watch that. But if he's there at 21, I wouldn't be mad at that. But Steelers have a long-standing history of going to their first-round draft picks Pro Day. Keep an eye on if they go to Alabama Pro Day. I'd be willing to bet you that they do. They chose to go to Georgia's Pro Day. Who could they possibly be scouting at Georgia's Pro Day that's more important than, a guard that could plausibly be there, and it's a big position they need? CJ Allen. Do you think they take him at 20? I don't know. I'd be
no.
I would be.
I like CJ Allen. I think
player.
He's been slandered a lot, but
I'd be disappointed. I would be upset. I'd be a little bit disappointed. Monroe Freeling, I think he's probably off the board by 21. I think he is.
I think they'd be making the same mistake they made with Broderick if they took Freeling.
I think they would too.
He's not my guy.
And I know maybe they're after Zachariah Branch. Point is, guys, no one plausible that they really, really need first round was at that Georgia Pro Day. But they needed Ione. They needed him at the Pro Day. They didn't go see him. Watch out for them going to Alabama Pro Day because they're keeping their cards close to their chest. They're going to take Ty Simpson at 21 overall, shock the world, and that will get one hell of a rise from the crowd in Pittsburgh. And Art Rooney's going to be counting his money. He's going to love it. And Mike McCarthy's going to get his guy. And Omar Khan, we're going to find out if he's a man or a mouse. That will be his signature pick right there.
Let's doodle with this a little bit because I don't think you're crazy for this take. I don't think that's insane. However, they went to LSU's Pro Day. Garrett Nussmeier, connections with McCarthy through Dallas, and his father, Nussmeier's father. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I really am nervous about that one because he's weighed in at like 200 pounds, and that's scary to me from an NFL quarterback. Durability concerns galore. Durability concerns with Simpson, but at least he was 211. He's essentially like I'm not talking about like play style, arm strength necessarily. I don't think they're that dissimilar there either. But like if we're just talking about physicality, he's Brock Purdy. Ty Simpson is Brock Purdy. Like he's 6'1", he's a little taller than Brock Purdy, but I think Brock Purdy was like 212 at weigh-in at the combine or wherever his pro day or whatever. Ty Simpson's 211. So take that with you will. I'm concerned about the durability there. But they've also had visits, pre-draft 30 visits with Carson Beck, and they've also had pre-draft visits with Cole Payton from North Dakota State. So they seem to be doing their homework on all the guys for the most part. And they talked to Aller at the combine. So, you talked to everybody.
But they didn't go to his pro day. They didn't go to his pro day.
Because they already talked to him. So,
Yeah.
Well, if he gets one of the late 30 visits, then he'll maybe re-enter the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them not really kicking the tires on Aller. I'm like, he's a guy that, like, when he gets off the bus and then when you see him on the field, you're like, no, this is
if you've watched any Penn State football ever, you're like this Drew Aller guy, like he's the prototypical size, he's fucking huge, he's got a rocket arm, and then you're like, I don't know what this guy's seeing. I just don't. No. I don't get it.
I'm not big on him. Maybe with a couple more years, but like that's not the Steelers timeline. I don't know. But that regardless, here's what I'll say to you though, with Ty Simpson. What if? How likely is this scenario? They still take him in the first, but they don't take him at 21. There's two ways they can do that.
Oh my
One
God.
is trading back. And another, especially for these fringe first round guys that we've seen pretty popular, and a certain Jackson Dart we were just talking about, What if they take a guy at 21 and then they have like an extra third, right? And then they can maybe move a future pick or whatever. What if they then trade back, or maybe they just get rid of their second because they've got 3/3? What if they take somebody at 21 and then they trade back in? Like, look at the what's our lineup at the back end? You look at. I mean, it's a little iffy because the Browns are there, but I don't think the Browns are going quarterback. I think they're going to eat the final year of he who must not be named and maybe give Shador a spin. So what if the Steelers pick a 21 and then somewhere before pick 30 and Miami come? Well, Miami's not actually going to pick either because they signed Willis. So really, they don't have any reason to worry at all. So as long as let's say they say we're taking our guy at 21, we like Simpson, but we're not like so sold on him that we're not willing to get, or maybe we have good intel the Browns aren't taking a quarterback. And so then we trade back in with, I don't know, who's a team that's really short on picks, who loves to trade out of the first round and is sitting right there at 32. And this would how you'd be closing out the night in the
I
Seattle
mean,
Seahawks. Could you see that being a scenario?
I could. Miami might be the team you're looking at late just because I'm sure they have a guy, but they're like full rebuild, like
They're
nothing.
full
So
rebuild and they signed Willis.
they might be, well, I don't know what the hell they're doing with that, but I think
I
that's
think
likely. Let me say this. If the Steelers give up their 2027 first rounder to go back up and get Ty Simpson, I think that is an absolutely astronomical mistake.
what if you don't have to
I,
though? What if you don't have to? Because I mean, I would be curious to look at some recent trade-ins to the back of the first. Like, what was the Giants trade? Because they still had their first pick this year. What was the
yeah,
Giants
I don't
trade
think it was much
for Jackson Dart? Let's see what that
yes,
compensation was. Uh,
because
they gave up. They got the 25th in exchange for 34 and 99 and a 2026 third. What if the Steelers were like, you know what, Seattle, take 53, take one of our thirds, and we'll throw you a future third. Is that enough to get into? Is that enough, or a future second, whatever it is? Don't give
and
up
if you
the
have to throw him another
2027
late,
first. What's up?
if you have to throw him another late pick too, because the Steelers
Sure,
almost have too many picks.
sure,
They almost have too many
sure,
picks for the
sure.
needs that they have.
Or maybe this wouldn't be part of it, but with all the buzz around running back and the Seahawks losing Ken Walker, what if you go those picks, which are still the foundation of, I think, of what they would want, but instead of throwing them another pick, your sweetener is, and here's Caleb Johnson.
Yes, I love this. Get free Caleb Johnson.
You
Free
know,
him.
I'm just curious. I still think Caleb Johnson can be good. I think it's very clear that he's not going to get a big role this year, barring injury from one of Dalvin Warren. I'm not concerned about Homer because Homer is not he's a special teams guy. He hasn't had a real carry in a long time. So that's not anything that I'm concerned with. But if he's going to be a game day inactive as the third running back again all year, and this is the regime didn't pick him, I could see them making a move. So maybe there's a world where they still take Simpson, but they also take somebody at 21.
So what I'm hearing is Jordyn Tyson 21, then Ty Simpson 32.
Now we're cooking with gas.
Now we're cooking. Omar Khan, if you listened, please do that. I'd be happy with that. That to me would finally be trying. I'd see the vision there. I
What are your
would,
thoughts
even
on
though
What are your thoughts on Simpson, though? I don't think we can get out of here without actually like addressing what we think of him as a player.
I'm not like super sold. I don't know who to like compare him to. Like you said, Brock Purdy, like body type, yes. I don't know what the hell I'm getting because he only played 1 year in college. And I think that's kind of the allure with him is, teams maybe became too obsessed with, oh, what's in this mystery box with like a Trey Lance or a Zach Wilson a couple of years ago. But Ty Simpson is almost like that in the sense that he's got a lot of upside. He's got a really big arm, but I think he also fits the Steelers' timeline because Rodgers is coming back next year. They're probably going to play him for all of the season, barring injury. Simpson's not someone that I would throw into the fire year one. but I think he might get some
Kinda
benefit
hate
from
that
that.
though,
I
because
hate
like,
it too.
if we bring Rodgers back and we're sitting Simpson, then you're voluntarily opting out of well, I mean, you can do whatever you want in 2027. It just would be very weird to use your first round pick or to trade back into the first to get a guy, sit him for a year, and then turn around and be like, "Oh, actually, we're gonna draft another guy in the first round next year." And I don't know, man. I think Simpson is a guy where I'm like I like to think about the 2024 draft class because that just feels like it's an easy, accessible. We had 6 quarterbacks taken. There was a pretty big spectrum from, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, to your Michael Penix's, JJ McCarthy's, and Bo Nix's. Where would you put Ty Simpson in that array of quarterbacks?
Probably better than McCarthy. I really hated Bo Nix, but he went to the perfect system. I think you can kind of lump him in with like Penix, Nix in that mix. He doesn't touch Caleb, Jaden, or Drake by any stretch of the imagination, but like somewhere in there with Penix and Nix, I feel like is fair. I don't know what you thought of them as
Yeah,
prospects. I
I think I've
wasn't
mentioned it
huge
before.
on Penix, but he was like my 4 definitely in that
My
class.
my order was Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, uh, Bonix, Penix, McCarthy. I was not in McCarthy at all. I was
No,
blown away as everyone else was. As a person who lives in Seattle and got to see a lot of Penix up close, him going in the first was shocking to me. I thought he was your classic round 2 quarterback. So him going in the top 10 was like mind melting when it happened. And like, I think Atlanta is still feeling the repercussions of that decision, especially with the signing of Kirk Cousins, who another fun debate is would the Steelers be better off with Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers if we're taking an old immobile quarterback, but we'll leave that for another day. Uh, so then it's like, okay, at best, we're like thinking in that class, Ty Simpson would be like what, QB4.
yeah,
Okay.
at best.
So then think about it. Let's take that same array of quarterbacks, and then you also let's drop in Arch Manning, Dante Moore. Who else we got? Mensa, John Mateer,
Like
Lenore
a Sam
Sellers.
Sam Levitt, if you're into him. I'm
I
not.
was I I don't know. I want to see what he does this year. I think he's kind of Jackson Dart Redux. I don't think he's got the same deep accuracy, but I think there's a lot of similarities in what their strengths are, other than the deep throwing for Levitt. The
I'm
mobility is kind of the main selling point.
I'll just tell you easy. I'd much rather have Arch Manning.
Yeah,
I I mean, obviously, I'd much rather have who else did you say?
Darren Metza. Let's throw out a Darian Metza. Like, what do you think about him?
I like him.
Lenore
I
Sellers.
like if Mensa puts together a good season in Miami, which I think he will, I think he'll be yes. Dante Moore, I'm taking over Ty Simpson, absolutely. Mensa, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna say yes for now. Sellers, I don't think I can say Sellers now. I like the idea of Lenore Sellers, the quarterback, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if Lenore Sellers is like the quarterback that everybody
I think
wants
I
him
still
to
take
be.
Sellers over Simpson if I'm being
I
honest. But
if Sellers was in the draft,
yeah,
I
well,
think
he
he
will be
goes over.
next year.
I think he will.
Yeah.
He would go over Simpson.
So I mean, that just kind of gives you an idea of like, I'm not saying Simpson can't be good, but he's gonna have to overcome a lot of red flags of limited experience, durability concerns, and he's problematic under pressure. If he can figure out what pressure is coming him pre-snap and do his thing, which is like his ability, is like that's his like best trait is his ability to pre-snap process and like adjust the line. And if he can do that correctly, he handles pressure all right. But when he doesn't know where the pressure is coming from and it surprises him, it gets ugly quickly. And he doesn't have like an amazing arm. He's got a good. I'm not going to say he's got a bad arm. He's got a decent arm, but he doesn't have a superhero arm.
Yeah.
So you know why you like Brock Purdy? Because you got Brock Purdy at Brock Purdy prices. Do you want to
Yeah.
pay first round prices for Brock Purdy?
No. Do you want to pay Jackson Dart prices for Brock Purdy? That's the
No, but
quote.
I can at least I think that's where we land is like, I don't want to do it, but if they did do it,
I
at least they're trying something.
Yes, that is what it comes down to for me. Is like I'm not gonna sit here and say that I think Ty Simpson will be good because at the end of the day, he probably won't be. But at least they're fucking trying. That's something
Yeah,
I can't say they've done in quite a while.
yeah,
So
and waiting for Aaron Rodgers again is,
I love it.
yeah, but hey,
Love
Ty
it.
Simpson will at
Just
least throw
great.
it, downfield probably.
Bet he will. That'll be fun. Maybe he'll be so
Can't
bad
wait
that we'll get
for
a high pick in
can't wait for
27.
Rico Dottle and Jalen Warren to have, like, 60 catches apiece this year. It's gonna be so filthy.
It's going to be great. I can't wait. Well,
Yeah.
Ryan, it's been fun as always. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. This has been Trust the Board Pod. Subscribe. I know I just said it, but please do it. It's
Please do.
fun.
Please do.
This is a lot of fun to do. We appreciate all you guys listening, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon.